And welcome back to another episode with the Real Teachers of Atlanta. I am Ty.
I'm Nikki.
I'm Joya.
Today we're going to be discussing about navigating hard conversations in the classroom or with your colleagues. Let's get into it.
We got the queens in the house, y'all. Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah, what does that look like? What do you mean hard conversations?
It can be, we've had conversations where we've had to talk about, especially during COVID, with a lot of our kids had tragedies.
Yeah.
So just having those hard conversations with death. And there were times when Rose was just falling apart at work.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a lot going on.
It was a lot going on. It was definitely
It was too
a
much
lot going on
at work.
A whole lot.
Yeah.
So, but to be serious about it, just how do you have those conversations with your students, with your colleagues? Because these are not people not all of them that you talk to every day.
Yeah.
So, you could be intruding in personal space, or just really not knowing what to say because, those were some heavy situations.
Yeah. I will say that I think the first part of it, and I did a little bit of reading, but the first part of it is knowing whether or not a conversation needs to be had. Because sometimes we want to talk about things, but sometimes you're not the right person to address whatever the issue is. I think during COVID is a great example of that, where, to your point, if it's someone you're not really close to, sometimes just saying, I hope everything is okay, and then just moving along or not saying anything. I feel like in some cases that's fine. Some people don't want that. I think, in those situations it was kind of sensitive. But if it's like a more serious conversation that you need to have with a parent or with an administrator or something like that, hell, I ain't gonna lie, some of those conversations I felt like I didn't need to have. But the ones that I did feel like I needed to have, I needed to know, what did I really want to gain from that conversation? What was I expecting? And then be honest about who you're having the conversation with and the type of person they are.
I think some conversations, Joy, did you have something you wanted to add? I'm sorry. But what I was going to say, I think some conversations need to be had and we don't have them, especially when we talk about student academics. I don't think we're transparent enough to the parents.
Yeah.
Do you think that's intentional?
Yes, I do. Because again, like I told you, teachers, not we, but generally teachers are kind of taught to over-explain. If Timmy, we'll go with little Timmy, if Timmy has a 60 in the class, hey, I've done all of these things. Hey, Mom and Dad, what are you going to do? See, I think saying that, putting it back on the parent is almost like startling to a lot of people. It's very jarring because it's the general consensus that you don't want to upset the parent. That will then run to the county, and then it's just this whole thing.
Yeah.
But we have to start being honest with parents, saying, hey, little Johnny has a problem with reading. Are you reading with him at home? And just leave it there. We don't have to over-explain. Yeah. We don't have to say, oh, well, I'm going to do this, and that. And then I'm going to give him a packet. And then we're going to say, no. I have done this. Mom and Dad, what are you going to do? And then say nothing and wait for the parent to respond.
Yeah, I think some of the things that you're saying are really about identifying. Sometimes we try to solution too much. I think that's the conversation that you're talking about, what teachers are doing. We're saying, we're talking all these things and we're solutioning and trying to solve for problems that are just simply not for us to solve.
Right.
And I'm just speaking from the teacher standpoint. But I think generally as women, we also tend to do that where we want to solve the world's problems and then we're like, stressed out, we're over it, and that's just not our responsibility.
Right.
But just to keep it education based, when you're in your classroom, when you're dealing with admin, when you're dealing with students, because there's times when talking to the student, you have to do that, or parents or whomever, you do need to determine whether or not you have to have the conversation, what you expect to have as an outcome. But I do think the biggest part of that is limiting what you're going to do. Stop trying to solve everybody's problem and just say, this is the issue. If it's a we that needs to do something, only own the responsibility for the things that are truly your responsibility. Because I think when you start, to your point, are you reading with him at home? Don't worry about it. I'll read with him during my break. I'm not.
Who's doing that?
Well, I think
not me, but we've seen. So for example, I was sitting there tutoring 4 days out the week after school when people could have just, these parents, middle school gets out so late, these parents were home. But I'm tutoring your child for free after school. Outside my contract, I was for free. I'm going to say the free part 6 more times. But that's something I did in the beginning. I learned. I learned real fast. But that's me taking responsibility for something that a parent could have done at home.
Right.
You needed resources. Google is free. So is Khan Academy. It was not for. It wasn't something I needed to do.
It's a partnership. It's a marriage. I am not, and I know if you run through all of our episodes, I always say what I'm not doing because I have very clear boundaries. That's just how I try to run my life. You have to have boundaries on what you're not going to do. Mm-hmm. I am not going to. Let me back up. As a teacher, there are certain things that you have to do. Sure. If you have a kid that just doesn't get it, then yes, I'm not going to say, oh, it's this time, all right, bye. But if we're like working together, then of course I'll go over the time. But as a teacher talking to a parent, is kind of like, what are their study habits like at home?
Yeah,
I shouldn't have to tell you as a parent what to do with your kid at home. Like I do my work here. As a parent, you should know, okay, this is what this child has or my kid has for homework. There are so many resources for math, for science. There are so many reading applications. There is no reason why you are not able, unless you work at night. There are some parents that just work. Yeah. So I understand that. But at some point, you're going to have to sit down with your child and try to figure out, okay, let's try to organize your book bag. Let's try to organize your notebook. I am not your child's parent. And I think that's what burns out a lot of teachers is we're trying to be the teacher. We're trying to be your kid's parent. And believe it or not,
parenting the parent.
Oh no, some teachers have kids too.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, you don't have.
Believe it or not.
What that kid told me one time. I thought you sleep here.
You don't do anything outside of teaching. You don't go out. You don't go out to eat. You don't
have a life. So what are you doing, mom and dad? If you tell me, hey, I work at night or I work a lot. I have 2-3 jobs. Okay, I'm not going to just say, okay, well then just, do whatever. You have to communicate with your teacher to let us know what's going on. Yeah. Because we're just assuming that you're doing nothing with your child at home. And believe me, every parent does not have 2 and 3 jobs. They just don't.
It's funny that you say that. The ones, from what I have experienced, I know that anything we're talking about is generalizations.
Right, it's not everybody.
That. We don't have. I feel like we keep saying that, but y'all know it's a generalization. We've never met
people
every single
are sensitive
person.
And they're not.
They are,
listen.
But don't be sensitive. Just take in the information.
Right.
But people with what I have experienced is that my parents that have had 2 and 3 jobs or kids in multiple grade levels in multiple schools, my parents that are single parents or that work in the evening. I had a parent one time who was going through nursing school while working a full-time job as a single parent, pulling it off by herself. She was at every PTA conference. She was in my inbox. She was asking questions. Never had an issue. That's what people do. If you make it a priority, it will be something that's done. I feel like it kind of goes back to like the thing that's been going around. People are like, when they talk about like relationships and specifically men, they're like, if he wanted to, he will.
Right.
That's how it is, I think, with parents. If you wanted to, you would. If this was a priority to you and you valued handling this, you would. Because text, emails, you can send an email from any device. It don't even have to have Wi-Fi. You can just have service. If you can text, if you can DoorDash, if you could get on social media, if you can watch this podcast, take a second and check in. If you're watching this as a parent, how about you email some teachers and just say, I just want to check in on little Susie Q. How's she doing?
I can see you, Susie Q.
And we will still be here when you return in 2 seconds, because there you go, right? And that sometimes that's all the teacher needs to initiate that conversation. Some of y'all absent.
I get that, but I do believe we need to have hard conversations with parents, because evidently some parents just not doing nothing at home. And I feel like I don't know what the conversation is being had. I don't know if, the conversation is, little Johnny is reading below grade level. No, let's be honest with the parents. This is the hard conversation. Johnny cannot read. Period.
And say nothing. And there's no explanation.
There's no below the nothing. The Lexile. He can't read. Lexile.
Ooh.
So I think we have.
You don't have one.
But you got to be clear about it too. Hard conversations are built on relationships. If you want to have that conversation be productive, and I'm just saying what it is. If you want that conversation to be productive, conversation itself, you're going to have some sort of relationship. But you can't be the one to build it by yourself. Well, you see what I'm saying?
Say the parents do have a relationship.
No, with you. Not the kid, but with you, right.
Right. And you may have an admin that, don't say it that way. There's no other way. That's the problem. We sugarcoat.
And that's the thing. You have to, I'm not trying to tell nobody what to do, but you have to ignore that part. Because that is, if you have a relationship with the student's parent or with this set of parents,
what if you don't?
Admin, if you don't, it's hard.
Tammy cute, but she can't count.
Right. I think that's the thing. If you don't, when you want a conversation to be productive and you don't have a relationship to base that having this tough conversation on, you're going to have a hard time getting.
Does the light bill company have to have a relationship with you if you're not paying your bill?
So I'm gonna say, I'll answer you. You cannot, once you have done what you can do,
right?
That you at the end of the road. I go back to what you said.
Right.
You have to have a hard line. I've done all I can do, and all I'm going to do. I have met the max when it comes to this situation. Parents, whoever's at home, and administrators too, have to be on the other side of that line and do their part. That student, we used to talk about, remember we used to do the little triangle, and I was like, okay, student success lives in the middle of this. If you want the student to be successful, it is 33.3 for everybody. The parent, the teacher, and the child. You all have to be there. If the student or the student, the parent, all those, everybody has to work for the success of that child. I can't do everybody's job. Well, so I'm going to just do my piece.
I gave the example about the light bill company because I think a lot of times people, like you said, the idea is to have a relationship with the parents, but sometimes you just don't have the time, and you need to be very swift and effective in how you're communicating. Like, we don't have that much time.
Correct.
Like, your kid is not progressing. True. And they're going to be pushed. The school system will push your child along and along, and then they get to high school and they end up dropping out. And then you're trying to figure out, well, why is it that my kid doesn't like school? Why is it that they're a freshman, they're like 16 years old and they're still taking freshman classes? Like, why? And the parent is so baffled because no one said, hey, little Susie Q can't count.
Let me tell you something.
They didn't have that hard conversation.
No, they didn't have it.
Let me tell you something.
Exactly.
Let me tell you the facts on that. That's not true. You said it before. When it comes to student behavior, we know, as a parent, you know your child better than every parent know their child better than anybody else in this world. So if Susie Q get to freshman year of high school or get to 16, 17 years old and still taking 9th grade classes, you knew in kindergarten Susie Q was struggling. You knew in 2nd grade when she still couldn't tie her shoe. You knew in the 5th grade when she still couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. You knew in the 7th grade when she still couldn't pass them tests and they was just passing her along. And you were like, well, I don't want her to be the oldest one in her grade, because guess what? Now all her friends whose parents showed up and said something
because
are
they
gone.
Didn't have the card
but you didn't want it. But parents have to say, it has to stop somewhere. Because to put that on the teacher and say, well, why didn't somebody say something? You knew first. You knew something was up. You saw the red flags. I have them for how long? As a middle school teacher, I have your kid for an hour in a classroom of 35 plus. We ain't got that kind of time.
We don't, right?
That's just the reality, and I think people are missing that. A lady on TikTok message, she was like, "Yeah, my class sizes are astronomical. I have 24 kids in here," and I was like, "Girl, what?
That's light.
That's nothing."
You should
24. That's a small group.
And that was my response. I was shocked and appalled, and I was like, "You're complaining about 24?
Girl, that's a small
baby,
group.
it's 24. I'll come back." You know what I'm saying? She was like, "Well, how many have you had? 37 in a box with no windows. What you talking about?
40 kids.
All day.
And don't let
Every class.
don't let somebody be out
with no restroom.
after PE.
Oh, you splitting them kids.
And you go get some. That 37 be 62 real quick.
Well, let's talk about when you cannot have these
tough conversations
with your coworkers, because some of y'all coworkers need to have these tough conversations. Some of y'all in these co-teaching situations and y'all miserable as hell.
Are we doing that today? Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all do not want to have these tough conversations.
The adults worse than children sometimes.
Yeah.
That's some people can't work together.
Yeah, they can.
That's just the reality.
So you cannot work together, but at the end of the day, you're in a room to service both of you or to service those kids. So you have to, just like a marriage, as they love to say, you're in a marriage. So some of these marriages are faking like it.
We had contracts.
I'm just saying.
Sorry.
Girl, but I remember the contract.
Remember the marriage contracts?
Yes. Sign that thing.
But if you want to lead a lesson, you need to have that conversation. Now, I didn't care nothing about it.
Right.
Let me tell you
But
something.
some of them lessons were leading when. Never mind.
Okay.
But
That's school I had met y'all at. I agree. I think. My bad.
You're going to keep on and just listen.
The P.O. box. I didn't see no mail in there. But,
Make sure it go to nigga D Rhodes.
It's on there. But I will say, even in that, okay, I think a certain level of
But
maturity need to
honestly,
come
so
up.
you have to have these, because I had to have,
How'd it go?
I've had some tough conversations.
How did
Well, for me, I try to be transparent. When I was in a co-teacher setting, we worked it. But this particular person, we didn't co-teach together, but
what you call it?
we can call it as neighbors.
No, neighborly.
Yeah, and you know that you're supposed to have each other's back as teachers. If
Absolutely.
you need to go to the restroom, I'll watch your class, vice versa. But anyhow, there was one particular teacher I never forget. She just was a moody person, I guess you can say. However, she decided that she was going to handle me a certain type of way, and we never interacted, so she really didn't know the person that I was. But I tend to pride myself as being a very pleasant person, but
Upon further review.
after further review, she had reached out and touched me. Yep. She had sent her a nice little first, she went and told on me instead of coming to me directly. But you're telling on me because I had to go to the restroom, and because you're my neighbor, I opened the door so you can look after my kids. Long story short, she thought she can talk to me crazy, but I had to have a tough conversation with her.
Yeah.
And after that tough conversation,
You were okay.
that's what it was. I didn't have any issues.
It was tense.
But as teachers, you can talk to your fellow coworkers professionally, and have those tough conversations, because you're at work every day looking at the same people.
Every
It's
day.
definitely a relationship.
Every day.
Yeah. I feel like, so we've talked about like gatekeeping information and not having great relationships and stuff within the school system and especially within your school environment. I think that this is just one of those other areas that ends up being touched by that same thing when teachers don't, because I don't feel like you have to have like a good buddy relationship with everybody that you work with, everybody on your team. I think you need to have a professional working relationship, and that's enough. And if that blossoms into a friendship, like we've been friends for years now, if that blossoms into a friendship and that works, fine. I mean, we've had our issues as well, but we've always been able to say, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's figure it out because the relationships are worth it, right? Work for me, a work relationship. I'm gonna give you enough, but I put it in a bucket like Joyce said. She got a line.
We know.
Once you, my line probably real close. That's all I got, about this much.
You got a little bit more patience than.
You think so? Sometimes I just
I think so.
Yeah, okay, but I just think. You do what you can, you function, and that's it. Right. And you don't have to have don't have an expectation that everybody's going to be your best friend.
Oh, right.
And that's it. And I feel like that's what happens. I think we work, when you're a teacher, you're in that school with the same people every year. People doing 10 years in the same school.
Ooh,
you start to feel like
it's a family. This is a family.
And you know when you look at, I would tell you about that. And when you start interviewing, like if you do corporate interviews and you talk to like a recruiter, one of the things that recruiters will tell you that is a red flag for employers is if how they describe their workplace is that we are like family. That is a red flag.
Really?
Because families.
I don't think so.
This is why.
Because my family from my first career, we are actually still family.
No, y'all. But what I'm saying is, if you go someplace and they interviewing you, we're like family here. Let's not just one particular instance, but let's talk about what families do. Families keep secrets. Families want to stay close. Everything that's in the family stays in the family. And they're not typically trying to
What family you come from?
No, I'm saying this is what we're saying. Like, they're going to keep your secrets, right? Your family tell all your business?
What?
They're going to tell it.
To everybody else? Well, even with that, is that what you want?
Right now.
Okay. But even with that, do you want your work family to be gossiping about your information? Do you want your admin not to have your back or to say they have your back in public? It's
just like any other family. You know which members to discuss your business with. That's it.
But that's not a. But with the
that's a family.
Okay.
That's realistically
so that is
family.
But that is a toxic work environment.
Well, that's a toxic
so when they say
then.
don't. But that's, your personal family is, I mean, hey, some people say that. I'm just saying, when you start looking at trying to get employment and stuff, that is one of the things that recruiters will tell you. This is a red flag. If your employer
want a family-oriented organization.
I don't. I want you to do the things that you said you were going to do. I want you to pay these bills.
You already let us know you cutthroat on the job.
Hey, because I'm here for my check.
See, that's right.
But I will say this, though. I have... Ever since I had...
Let us know, baby. It's a competition.
It's not a competition. I'm just here for my check.
But the circle back about that having a relationship with your parents. See, for me, early on, I think I was having those hard conversations in the beginning of my career. So I guess I don't really have them now.
Yeah, how did that?
Yeah, I got in a lot of trouble.
I mean,
for having those hard
talk about it though. I think earlier in your career. So what did that look like for you early in your career?
I was letting the parents know what time it was,
When you say that, elaborate, because I feel like people would say something. I think you would say something different now. Like what is
bad?
So that's how you would say it.
I mean,
I mean, that's what I want to know. Like, what did you?
Up look, you not said it that.
Okay,
that
so my child fell in your class, and it's a.
But I was straight up. I've learned a lot, parent thought they was going to try me. I was having hard conversations.
I want to know the difference. That's what I'm trying to get to. What did you say in the beginning? You would say what? So early in your career, you got a child acting up. You would say what to that parent?
Your son is cutting up in class. He's doing this. He's doing that. The parent will take up for the child and refuse to believe that little Tommy or little Timmy is acting this way. And little Tommy was the devil.
So now, fast forward, how would you have that same conversation? What do you change? What is different?
Well, now you got these already formulated communications that you send out, and you just hey, they're disrupting the class. Like there's different channels that you got to go through. Like now kids have steps. They have
I'm tired of steps.
They got about 12 steps before they get to the principal. It's very different from when I started. Like the the discipline really is taken away from the teacher, but they want you to be able to manage your class. And I never could understand that contradiction. You want me to have classroom management, and then you want me to not be able to discipline, which I don't feel like we come to school to discipline anyway.
Right.
But if my classroom management is putting your child out my class, I think that should be acceptable.
Okay. And I'm not disagreeing. So I want to ask this. I know we've talked about grades and we've talked about behavior.
I've had to tell a parent pretty much that her raising her child, she was trash. Based on how the child was coming to school.
Gotcha.
I might not have said trash, but you don't need, I mean, it was a group of us. It was a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. She needs to be removed from your care.
Okay.
And I never thought I would have to do that, but for the best interest of their child, because I seen how that child was hurt, and because I love that child, I had to have that hard conversation with the mom, because either she was in denial or she was just
tripping. So I want to ask
faking, or I don't know, but she knew, like, we had to have a hard conversation with you.
So I want to ask
about to lose your kid.
Gotcha. Yeah. I want to ask both of y'all this question. We talked about behavior. We've talked about grades. When you have difficult conversations about a student's possibility of needing like an IEP or a 504, where you suspect there may be a learning disability, how do you approach those? Because I think parents are sensitive to those, and I recently ran into that with totally unrelated, but recently ran into that, and I'm curious how you have approached those conversations and what advice you would give about that.
Well, last time I checked, you can't make recommendations.
Sure, but
like you can't say, "Hey, I think your child is slow."
Absolutely not.
Right, but how do you approach it? Because you're right, our hands are tied.
That's the natural way.
That's the wrong connotation.
Don't tell them people that. New teacher coming in the door, they're asking you.
We call each other slow. We
don't worry about us.
We can't say that.
That's not what I would say, but I'm saying that's you.
How would you approach?
You can't say that. That's what I'm trying to say. You're making it seem like that's.
I know.
I have never said that.
No, but I'm saying, how would you approach it?
How would I say
it? If you start saying like, "Hey, parent, I'm seeing some trends." How would you approach
I would say I'm seeing some declining in their test scores. I'm finding that they're not focusing. They're distracted. You drop those keywords: distracted. They're not focused. It's not. They aren't absorbing the information.
I think he got ADHD. You need to go get him checked.
Well, see, I can't say that.
That's a hard conversation.
It is, but you literally, and I think, and I'm saying this because we have a lot of new teachers that message it and in these comment boxes looking special. I'm just trying to say, because I know that's y'all's world. I know we don't say that. You can't say what it is. You're not a doctor, but what
it's not best practices to give.
You want to end up in
that to label, to give a diagnosis. When I know for a fact your child has ADHD.
Can smell it from down the
hall. I know for a fact it's a cognitive issue.
We know when he come to school on medicine and when he don't.
Did you take your medication today?
I'm saying for kids where they don't have anything going, they don't have an IEP, they don't have 504, and you're looking at that situation, you're looking at they've been struggling all year, no matter what you've done, you're giving interventions, they're joining your small groups, and we're still, that parent, you need to have that conversation.
You got to have paperwork.
Some people ain't taking no data because that's a lot more work that's on the teacher to actually identify a child that needs services.
That's
so
a lot
of kids
get
passed along. They may be in the second grade and a teacher notice these things, or really third, because that's when you really have
you start to see it.
Right, the reading level starts to increase. So that's when between second and third grade, when a child is struggling, especially if they're not reading at third grade, that child is struggling. But nevertheless, some teachers will
just
pass them on through.
They don't want to do the data.
Because they ain't failing nobody, because the Georgia milestone is supposed to, if you do not pass that reading piece,
you're supposed to stay.
You're supposed to stay. But we know they go to summer school, bloop, bloop, go on to the fourth grade.
They do what?
Bloop, bloop.
Okay.
Skip on. So now you're in the 8th grade.
Okay, they're in 8th grade now.
You're in 8th grade.
And they need an IEP.
And you're on a second grade reading level.
So how do you approach that?
Well, by that time they're in services.
No, I'm saying if they're not.
You mean through the parent? How do you?
Yeah, so I'm talking about how do you have this?
Now, because the third and the fourth grade teacher ain't want to take
That's
that down.
But I'm saying what
if they're not in services?
Yeah, you have a kid. Regardless, I'm just saying, what would you tell? That's what I'm asking. How would you approach that conversation?
They're gonna catch it because that is. How can I say this?
We done had some come through
well, I'm gonna tell you why they're going to catch it because it's.
We done had some folks. So
if y'all understand what I mean. About to get this.
Y'all heard that?
Y'all know what that means.
But
they're gonna catch it.
What's that?
Y'all know what that means. On any end of the spectrum, whether you are Einstein or not.
Yes, but
they're gonna make sure they capture those kids because it's gotta get this bread.
But I'm asking, how would you talk to us? How would you talk to a parent if you
give me my money? That's not what I said. That's just how it is.
That's what I'm asking.
What's that, Rose?
How would you approach it? I have a.
You can't.
I done told you that just come.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Can't say
you can't diagnose them, but you can.
Okay, let's see how Tyra would do.
Adams.
That's what I want.
It appears that your son or your daughter is struggling in reading. What we gonna do?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of saying what are we, because it's a partnership.
What are we going to do to help fill in the gap for Samantha?
She on a second grade level.
Because she is struggling.
Yeah.
She on 8th grade, 2nd grade level. We got a lot of work to do, ma'am.
That's a hard conversation.
It is. That's why I'm asking that question because
by that time you in the 8th grade,
they've captured already. There's no way.
If you are a parent, you know
you're in special education.
Or you should know. That lets me know that you're doing there's absolutely no reading or anything going at home. If your child is in the 8th grade and you just discovered that they cannot read on an 8th grade level or even shy of that, I mean, let's say if they're a grade level behind. Okay.
I could do with 7. Okay.
But you mean 4 grades?
You don't know.
I think that some parents, and I'm not saying that, now I'm going to say 2 things.
Because I know that all kids have a learning disability.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. Not all kids that are not on grade level is due to a disability.
It sure isn't.
It is not. We know
it's
that
a parenting disability.
And it's a.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, it's
a
all
lot
the
of different
things
factors.
working for that kid just keep getting pushed along. But taking those kids out of the equation, the kids that do need additional support.
Okay, yeah,
right. That truly do. They need additional support.
Okay, yes.
I have seen 2 kind of buckets. Parents that are in denial.
Okay, yes.
And they're like, because I had that instance. Mm-hmm. Parents are in denial, and you're looking at this kid like
they don't want that stigma on their kids.
And we do that a lot. We don't want our kids to have this stigma. We don't want them to be put in the slow class or whatever.
But it's not the slow. It's not.
I think it's not like it was when we were.
We're using that term because that's the stigma.
Yeah,
that
it
people,
is. That's what people say.
And
they act.
They just
like,
need more. They just
that's
need
it.
more resources.
And really and truly, everybody is getting additional support because ain't nobody where they need to be. But then the other bucket is the parents who want all the labels. You know what I'm saying?
Is that?
And then that part I have not figured out. But I feel like what's that syndrome where people will like make up ailments?
Munchausen.
That's what some of that might be. Where they're just like, it's always my child got this or they this and that. Like they want all the letters of the alphabet, so they can say like people almost use like a crutch to justify whatever.
I can't imagine why a parent would want their kid to be labeled. With all of these different issues.
But we've seen some.
Yes, we have seen some.
And I've had a parent that
and I'm like,
and we're going to circle back on this topic because I think this is a good topic to close out on.
Jot that down.
Yeah.
We talked about prison, the pipeline. Let's talk about IEPs, prison, the pipeline. Or do we want to talk about parents making up diagnoses for their kids? Because some parents will do it.
Mm-hmm. Some parents.
I had a parent to do that in the private school, that absolutely doesn't honor any IEP.
Yeah. Yep. We definitely need to talk about that because
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Who's
It's
going to close this thing out?
closed it
Who's
out
going to
last time.
close us out? Because I'm ready to go eat.
She didn't invite us, but that's fine.
That's fine. I guess I will. Where am I going?
We can go eat.
Hey, that's my camera over there. All right. Thank you so much. That's another episode of The Real Truths of Atlanta. We hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe on all of our platforms because we love you. And if you have something to add to the conversation, please drop it in the comments. We will also link any resources that are available for this episode for you in the description of this video.
Bye. What resources you going to hooked on?
Well, y'all going
No, actually, there is what her topic there actually is like a course you can take for productive conversation.
Dr. Umar on the show.
Speaking of, you know who we need to have. Did I tell
Yeah.
y'all about the guy that worked at Forest Park, the Mr. B Dallas?
Where are we going to eat?
We got the queens in the house, y'all.